Hello again, this is Nick Roach. We're outside again, getting a little chilly. The camera's dropped back inside the property a bit to try to avoid the wind noise. We'll see how much that works. And we've got the sounds of nature, of course, so hopefully that won't be off-putting, it'll be enjoyable. I just created a video actually. I talked about 20 minutes and then noticed the SIM card was full. I'm starting again. There we are. A few weeks ago, my last video described another stage or a deepening which was occurring here, or had occurred here. I had described a few years ago the experience was of the awareness here and the physical scene. I, the one watching, and the physical objects had become one and the same experience. Knowledge was, I am this. It's quite a common thing in enlightenment, as people describe it, for some. Not for everybody, and I'll come to that later, why that's the case. I've been learning, you see. It's good. As I described a few weeks ago, that what had shifted is I'd become aware of being the space between the observer and the object's physical appearance. It was something I'd always overlooked. I'd assume there's me and there's the objects, we're one and the same, that's it, job done. But I'd overlooked the space between the two. Strange. There you go. And the experience was of that space was no longer empty space, but I'll say filled that space, but there was just no separation between this, the space, the objects. It all became one experience of this. And I knew there was more to come, so I've been reading a lot and exploring a lot the different levels and the deepening of enlightenment, to give it a name. And I want to say more about that in a video after this. But one of the things as I was reading and understanding how it deepens, one of the things I read and learned was that one goes beyond the experience of being the physical world. One drops the identification with this is me, one lets go of that, because that's an attachment still like any other. One lets go of that and becomes the source. And this felt right to me, this felt where I was going. Felt like what was happening now, but I didn't know how to make it happen. Obviously holding on to physical environment, just being aware of it, just reinforced that it's me. That's what was happening. And I even tried for a few weeks putting extra effort into what I could see, what I could feel, almost trying to get rid of the sense of being it by pushing myself out into it, and that didn't work. And then I remembered in the autobiography I describe when I entered this last stage, which is all part of the same phase, in 2014, the no self liberation stage, where the centre disappeared. I noticed that I'd been holding on to a sense of a centre without knowing I'd ever done it, and the only way of, I couldn't dissolve it, so I put my attention off it into the space outside of myself, and it immediately disappeared. I put it back and it was again, and the next day I did it again, and when I went back it had gone. And that was how I finally entered the no self stage. Now of course this only works when you're ready. You have to have gone through the other stages first to get to the stage where these things work. So anyway, so what I did here, I thought, well, how do I do this here? If this is all me, the physical environment, how do I go beyond it? And then it occurred to me, I have the sensory appearance of the world here, what I can see, but there's what I can't see, the rest of the mind, the being, God, source, whatever you want to call it, that is beyond the physical sensory world. So, a bit like I did last time, I imagined my awareness going out beyond what I could see, feel, hear, beyond that, in all directions. Now, in a way it felt strange because it was visualizing, it was mental games, imagining it. I mean, what good would that do? I thought at least it couldn't do any harm to try it. The worst it would do is I spend a couple of days playing mind games for myself. Well, it was a couple of days. On the second day it got quite comfortable feeling the space, just these tentacles of awareness all around physical world, into the empty space, being, whatever you want to call it. And by the third day I noticed they weren't tentacles anymore of awareness. It had become a fullness, and that my identification was no longer I am this. It had dropped back. And there's not much to say after that, really. And that's actually the amazing thing. I want to save some things to say in the next video, which is about some levels of enlightenment as it goes deeper. And the point is one has to keep going deeper. If you insist, I'm done, I'm finished, that's it, then you won't be open to moving on, so you won't move on. You'll stay as you are. You've got to be open to keeping going, and then you'll keep going. So don't dig your heels in. If you reckon you're enlightened already, that's great. Keep going. That's not the end. Anyway, so what happened? It's been described by others as a veil, thin veil being lifted, and that was for me really, it's quite a good description. It was nothing major, no major experience of anything. It was just very subtle, very gentle. My identification of being me shifted from this to can I say this again? But to include, but not limited to the physical environment? No, I think it's more correct to say I'm not the physical environment anymore. It's occurring within the space that I am. And I want to take out the word space then, because space implies empty space, and there's nothing empty about this, but there's nothing specific in it. It's pure potential of anything and everything, the source before anything exists. And I'm going quiet. I'm looking at it, trying to look for words. It was just such a thin feeling of just minor shift from being identified with the physical sensory world being me to no, it's not. But in some ways, although I'm saying this is all within me, the identification with being me also went. But I'm aware there's some of it still left, and that will be the next stage. So I'm only a week or two into this now, and reading from other people, it can take several months or even a couple of years to acclimatise and stabilise in this state. So in this one, I'm just a newbie. I'm the new boy at the party, who just arrived. Hello, I'm Nick, I've just got here. So I'll just sit for a moment and see if I can think of something to say. that's one of the things that is said, that one has to give up their enlightenment. And I quite like that, because that is pretty much what happens. In the early stages, one identifies, I'm enlightened. You might say, I am nothing, or there's nobody here, or I'm not the doer, or these are all phrases you may have heard before. For me, it was more, I'm not the personality, I'm the one behind it all. Because I spent so many years holding on to the knowledge, I am the stillness, the I. But that's the first level. And then there's the second level, where you become identified with the physical environment. And I am this. I'm the world. I'm what occurs. But then one has to give up that as well. Give up the identification with being this, with being anything. And one withdraws and relaxes into the foundation, or the base energetic layer, where everything occurs. But in doing so, one lets go of the identification with being anything else. Because as soon as you, or whilst you hold on to I am that, you're limiting yourself. You can't be everything else then. But as you let go of all these things that you think you are, and so, as I was trying to describe it to Sally at the time, we're sitting outside Costa having a coffee, we were watching people walking by. I noticed I never had a lot of judgment in me anyway. But what was there was now far less, far more subtle. It was more an observational, as opposed to a judgment in anybody and everything. Because in stepping back like this, there's less emotional identification and attachment to what occurs, but also in doing so, whatever occurs is within me. It is safe to say, I think everything is still self, and everything is still myself. Whereas previously I was identified with being myself. I'm talking about the higher self here. So one identifies with being the higher self. I am this, I am God, I am life, I am everything, I am here. And then one steps back and going, no, that is all within me, but I'm not it. I'm the base layer, the foundation, the source, where that occurs. So I'm almost here. It's some virtual reality specs I've got on which are myself. I'm looking into myself, interacting with watching myself, talking, interacting with aspects of myself, and I'm just watching it. And yet nothing has changed physically. Everything is still just the same. But it's just the identification has pulled back from being the mind and the body to being the one watching, to being the one mind behind it all, and I was God, I was the physical world, even being behind that, and everything exists within this. So this will go deeper. It's got further to go, like I've said, and there is at least another stage beyond this, I understand, that one can reach whilst in the physical body, and apparently quite a lot after that as well. So we shall see. I went a bit deeper into the different levels there that I was going to. I was going to reserve that for the next video, but I'll try not to double up too much. But yeah, it keeps going, and one keeps going deeper and keeps going still, and one just got to keep an open mind and keep going, and it's always moving on. And I shall do more videos as things change here. Thank you.